And now for something completely different.
Hey, so Robbie, we got a special treat this week. 2 episodes in 1 week. We're calling this a Swish Extra. All about
extra fun.
I know, extra, read all about it. It's or watch it. It's all about the new Michael movie, which Robbie and I both saw in the last
And we're not
couple
talking about
days.
Michael Myers.
No, not this time. Although Mike Myers is in this movie.
He is, in a weird sort of way.
In a weird sort of way. We'll get that in a minute. Michael was released in U.S. theaters and also in IMAX this past Friday, April 24th. And believe it or not, it's the biggest global opening for a biopic ever, beating Oppenheimer from just 2 years ago. So the biggest opener also of a movie in 2026 so far to date. So I thought that was pretty cool. So as of Monday, it's already made $97 million domestically, $120 million overseas, for a total of $217 million globally, which is pretty fantastic. I guess people like this movie.
Michael Jackson has a ton of loyal fans all over the world.
So I listened to you and I didn't read anything before I went to see this movie. I basically knew nothing except that Jaafar Jackson was playing the part of Michael as an older dude. So I knew nothing. So I actually kind of like that. But if you guys don't know, the movie spans from the beginning of the Jackson 5 back in the 60s through the years to Michael to about 1989.
It ends in 1988.
Yes,
is what they say on the screen.
When he was in the middle of the Bad tour. So
right.
That's what the movie encompasses, and they do it all in about 2 hours and 7 minutes.
So yeah, it was from like 1966 to 1988.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they put up the years as it goes on. It's very linear.
And that was very helpful because they did jump forward in time several times during the movie. So it was helpful to know where we were.
And fairly inaccurate in some spots.
Yes, and we're going to get to that later. There's a lot that's inaccurate, but also
and I'm a stickler for facts. So
I know you are, and I know that this kind of thing probably bothered you. Didn't bother me, even though I realized it as I was watching the movie that some of the facts and some of the things in the timelines weren't quite working out the way I remembered that they did. However, if they really were a complete stickler and they put all the characters and all the people in there and all the different things that were happening, it just would have been, they'd have to do a series instead of a movie. It would have just been too
Maybe they
much.
should have. They should have, because I don't think 2 hours was long enough.
It wasn't long enough, which is why we're going to have more of it. And we're going to talk about that later in the show. But first, I want to talk about this is the thing that got me, Robbie. Rotten Tomatoes, the tomato meter, that is take all of the critics, the movie critics from all over the country that review the movie ahead of time. It only has a tomato meter of 38%. The critics were not
that's from critics,
loving
from
this.
professional critics only.
Exactly.
It doesn't count like you or me or any Joe Blow on the street.
No. Yeah, just the critics. That's their tomato meter on Rotten Tomatoes. But the popcorn meter, that's the one that I think is most important. That's the everyday moviegoers like you and me who go to the movies and rate them 97%. So people going to this movie are walking out very happy with what they just saw.
Well, it's very palatable for anybody. There's nothing artsy about it. There's nothing complicated about it. Anybody could see it and make sense of it. There's nothing too deep. People like just being spoon-fed stuff. You know what I mean? And I felt like I was being spoon-fed while I was watching this movie.
Did you? Did you feel at times?
I did not have to think on my own to there was no, okay, first I'm going to start by saying I liked the movie, but I did not love the movie. I didn't love it, but I liked it. I didn't love it because I was entertained watching it. And even as I was sitting watching it and I was, thinking about it because I knew we were going to have this discussion and I was sort of analyzing it as it went along, it sort of felt like a big budgeted TV movie.
That's
with
exactly what I thought.
with a really big budget, with really good performances. I can't
Yes.
say anything bad about the performances. Everybody in the movie was very good.
Very good.
Even the CGI chimp, that's Bubbles. But no, everybody was great, especially Jaafar Jackson. I was very impressed with his performance. It almost felt like you were watching Michael Jackson.
He
He had
did
the
a great job.
voice. And when I say voice, I mean speaking voice. It sounded very much like Michael Jackson. When it comes to the singing, I was curious, are they going to use Michael's real vocals and dub them over Jafar, or was Jafar going to sing? I really don't like it when a biopic has like the actor singing the famous music of this person that has this extreme talent. I want to hear their voice, like sort of how they did it in Bohemian Rhapsody. It was actually Freddie Mercury from Queen singing instead of Rami Malek. Who wants
Right.
to hear Rami Malek sing? Nobody.
Robbie Malek probably can't sing.
No. So I was like, I hope it's dubbed with MJ's vocals, because MJ, I mean, his vocals are, he was as big as he was because of his talent. And so what I learned is it was a mix of Jafar and Michael's. They blended the vocals together.
And they did a really good job
They
doing
did a good
that.
job, because I was a little like, is it really Michael? It sounds like Michael. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
But what Jafar got down pat was the moves. I was absolutely amazed that he got the dance moves down.
Yeah, like watching that Motown's 25th anniversary performance in '83,
Yeah.
where he introduced the moonwalk to everybody and people lost their minds.
Yeah.
That was fun to watch. And, I don't know if I didn't hear that anything was CGI'd for that. It feels like he really did this moonwalk.
I think he did.
But yeah, no, I was saying like I didn't love it because the quality of
Inaccuracies.
the quality of writing was just not deep enough for me. There wasn't really a lot of nuance, and you're not going to learn anything new about Michael Jackson in this movie. You're just going to be told a story from page to page, sort of like the way that the public knew Michael Jackson.
Right. Well, if you were just a casual listener of Michael Jackson's music in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s and didn't know and weren't like you and me, who are on top of all the pop culture shit and watched MTV all the time, then you might not know some of these stories.
Or didn't grow up in the 80s and 90s when Michael Jackson was the shit.
Exactly.
You couldn't go anywhere without Michael Jackson being there.
Yeah.
And like, I know that like we have a little bit of an age difference, just a little bit, maybe like 10 years. But when I was a kid in the 80s, all the kids knew 3 universal figures. And that was Santa Claus, Ronald McDonald, and Michael Jackson.
Sure.
Every kid knew who those 3 people were. I don't care if you were poor, rich, from Louisiana, from California, you knew all 3 of those. And I don't know why you did, but clearly Santa Claus and Ronald McDonald, duh.
Yeah.
But Michael Jackson just had a way to seep into all of that.
Absolutely.
And I mean, one of the first cassette tapes I ever bought was Bad.
And
not knowing what Dirty Diana was.
Yeah. And I had Thriller on vinyl, one of the very first when it first came out, and I still have it. So, and Robbie tells me I should hold on to it.
Hold on to that.
Probably going to be worth something someday, although I'm never going to sell it. Anyway, unlike you, I loved the movie, and I found myself having a smile on my face almost the entire movie, except for the parts when I wasn't supposed to be smiling. But I thought it was just so wonderful, and I thought they did a really good job, not knowing anything about the inaccuracies that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But I just thought it was really fun. And now, can we talk about the big question? The big question, it's been answered a couple of times now, but most people probably don't know. Where's Janet Jack? You know what I first should say? I should say that we are going to spoil some things, but I don't know that we're spoiling things. I don't know if you can spoil a movie like this.
You can't really spoil this movie because there's nothing to learn that you don't already know.
Yeah. It's not like, The Sixth Sense. You can't spoil this movie like you could with that one. So I don't think it's spoiling telling you that Janet Jackson is not in this movie. And she's
not even in the background.
Not portrayed in any way, not mentioned in any way. And of course, Janet was a huge figure in the Jackson family.
The
and she
second biggest one, I think.
absolutely, hands down. And she was probably closest of all of his siblings to Michael. So it's kind of curious why she wasn't there. So people asked, and you said you saw something with Latoya talking
Yeah.
about,
So Latoya Jackson said that Janet politely declined. I don't know what prompted that, but I don't know. Janet's kind of a private person.
very,
If you hadn't noticed, I mean,
yeah,
she had a secret marriage to Jermaine Dupri, and nobody knew about it for like how many years. But
several.
yeah, she's not that open about things, and honestly, she probably doesn't trust a lot of people, and she just didn't want to be in it. But I mean, do you have to get her permission to show her in the movie? I mean, maybe they were just being nice, because you could have just had some girl there that's supposed to be Janet.
Well,
I don't
it,
think Rebe was in it either.
no, Randy and Rebe were also the other two
Yeah,
siblings are
because
not.
Rebe had a hit in the 80s called Centipede. If you're old enough to remember that one, go look it up on YouTube. The video is really fun. It's called Centipede by Rebe Jackson. And Michael Jackson does background vocals on it.
Remember it. I remember it. So no, it's interesting that both Janet, Rebe, and Randy all decided not to participate. But it's not like this was just some outside group making this movie. The estate was very involved. So I know that Tito, Jermaine, Jackie, Marlon, Latoya, Prince Michael, they were all executive producers on this. So they had a hand in um, everything that was
Well, and that makes
portrayed.
sense. That makes sense. And I didn't know that. And that's why there's really nothing that Michael's not shown in any kind of bad light whatsoever at all.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you don't even get like even something minor. I'm not even talking about the child allegations that we'll talk about in a minute, but
No, I know, but I
like you
think
don't
that
get anything bad. It's all like he's this immense talent. His father was abusive, and now he's a global superstar.
yes.
That's what you're gonna get. You're not the one part of the movie that I thought was the best sequence was the Pepsi commercial where his hair caught on fire and he got burned. There was a little bit of that I didn't know all the fine details. Like, you always heard the story Michael Jackson's hair caught on fire in the 80s when he did a Pepsi commercial. There were tons of jokes about it over the years and all that stuff. When you watch it for real, well, in the movie, you watch the story of it. Honestly, it was a very serious matter. And he burned his scalp very bad, and he had like a permanent bald spot there. And that's what started him on painkillers. Now, if they had explored more of that kind of aspect of the movie, like his internal turmoil with that, and maybe his internal turmoil with being an abused child, you just get like superficial stuff here. But I'm saying this just because, I love movies, and I like all kinds of movies, bad ones, good ones. This just didn't dig deep enough for me, but I did enjoy it. I will say
Yeah.
that I did enjoy it.
But here's the thing, though. I think that it did dig deeper. We didn't get to see it because I don't know if you saw this. In April of 2025, Lionsgate, the producer of the film, came out and said, we have a 4-hour cut of this movie. That's what they were delivered. 4-hour movie. And Lionsgate was like, we can't release a 4-hour movie. People are not going to sit through a 4-hour movie in a
Why
movie
not?
theater.
Oppenheimer was damn near 4 hours, and more people care about Michael Jackson than Oppenheimer. I'm not
Right.
shitting on Oppenheimer. That's a impactful story, but
Right.
we
Alright,
all
but
sat in the theater for 3.5, 4 hours for that.
not me.
I did.
I haven't seen it. I had no interest, but I'll tell you. So they did go back and rework it, and they edited it down to 3.5 hours. And then the studio was like, "No, we can't do it." So they basically said, "Fine, we'll edit it down to 2 hours and 7 minutes." That's what we got ultimately. That's what you and I watched last week. And they said, however, we're going to put a card at the end that says his story continues.
Yes, I saw
And
that. I saw that.
and Lionsgate said if the movie makes its money back and does really well and is well received, you can make another one.
I think all that's just Hollywood bullshit.
I
You
don't
know
think it
damn well
is.
that they were gonna make they
You're
I don't even
saying you're
I
saying
don't
that they
even
were
know.
always going to make another one.
They can't leave it like this. Even if the movie flopped,
Right. Well,
you would
that
have to continue this story because you're in the movie ended so abruptly. I knew going in that the movie was 2 hours and 7 minutes. I set my watch. I know exactly where I am on the clock when I watch a movie. I'm like, how much time is left? I minus the trailers and all that ads. I knew when it was ending. I was like, we're only at the victory tour and we have 15 minutes left in this movie. What? How are they going to put 15 minutes? So they skipped a lot of years between the Victory Tour right
bad.
after Thriller
Yeah.
and Bad. So honestly, what was Michael? I'm thinking in my head, what was Michael Jackson doing in 1986? Apparently just resting because I don't remember him having anything out on the radio then either. But then it ended and I felt like it wasn't enough.
You're gonna get more. You're gonna get more. And it was more. John Logan, the guy who wrote this movie, he said, "We took it all the way to the mid-90s. They filmed that." So when they've already got all that stuff on film, and we're gonna talk about the controversy stuff that they took out, but they've got a lot of stuff to work with. So when they go back into the studio to make the second film that'll take you up to when he died,
And
they've
this is
already
gonna that's gonna be the more interesting movie right there.
I agree with you. There's so much more to talk about. So much more happened, right?
Because, when
I
like I
mean,
said before,
we didn't even go to Neverland
no,
in this movie.
he didn't get Neverland till like 88 anyways,
Right. Right.
thereabouts. Um, like I said, when we were kids in the 80s and part of the 90s, Michael Jackson was a huge global superstar, could do no wrong. And things started falling apart after the first allegations happened at the very end of 93. And so after 90, maybe probably about, okay, 94, remember when he married Lisa Marie Presley? I wonder if they're going to talk about that. That was the beginning of like the molestation charges, the first one, him marrying Lisa Marie, and then he started turning into a punchline. I read National Enquirer every week. They called him Wacko Jacko. He always wore a mask way before we did for COVID. We thought he was weird. He had his baby later on when he had kids. He had them in veils and burqas and weird shit. And so he was a punchline and a kind of a joke from maybe the late 90s up until when he died. But
Right.
he still had a huge fan base and they still respected him. But
Right.
the general public, they were making fun of Michael Jackson left and right. And it
They
was
were
kind of sad and depressing. But I mean,
But at the same time, Robbie, that they were making fun of him, they were also his huge fans and they were spending money on his concerts and they were buying his CDs and they were watching his stuff on MTV.
but things started petering out because you know what? Him and Janet doing Scream together as a duet, you would think that would be huge. It didn't even hit number one.
Because the song sucked, but the video was pretty cool.
I remember the
But
video was very cool, but you would think a collab like that would be like number one for like
yeah,
8 weeks or
but
something.
I disagree with you that he was petering out. I mean, at the time, right before he died, he had signed a deal to do 50 concerts, a 50 concert residency at the O2 in London. Nobody is going to give you 50 shows right off the bat. And those fucking things sold out. And of course, he died in the middle of, before he could perform the first one, he was in the middle of practicing for that. So I don't think he petered out. I think he just wasn't producing new stuff, but he was certainly still performing and
Well, when I
still
say petered out, I mean he wasn't like as strong as he was during even like the Dangerous era from like 90 92. I think this movie should have gone up until I think the end scene of this movie should have been sort of like the way Bohemian Rhapsody ended with Freddie Mercury at the Live Aid concert in 85. It
yeah.
should have had Michael at the Super Bowl in 93.
There you go. See,
That would have been a great ending.
I think that was one of the ideas that John Logan had. But also what
And
I
that was,
wanted
and look, that was even before the molestation charges even happened.
right.
So if that was hurting things for them moving forward past that, you didn't even have to deal with it because those charges didn't even come out until like the end of the year in 93.
Right. And I know you know this, they filmed a lot of those allegations Jordan Chandler's 1993 accusations against Jackson, which he settled. I believe he settled out of court. And one of the things that they settled on was that the estate could never fictionalize or put Jordan Chandler and his accusations in a film. They went ahead and filmed it anyway, and then someone at, at Lionsgate, the legal department at Lionsgate said, "Oh, you need to take that out."
Well,
And they did.
can't you still depict that story without naming that
Yes.
person?
Yes, you
You could
can.
easily do it. You could call him something else.
Yes,
You could just not name the person. You could
they
say, "Hey, we've
can.
got that lawsuit."
Yes, they can, and that's what they plan to do in the second movie, but they cannot mention Jordan Chandler. That's the agreement they made with him.
So, all right.
But what I wanted to say, just going back for a second, you were talking about what you wished that it ended with. What
Yeah.
I wished, as I was watching Jaafar as Michael Jackson doing bad in that very last scene, I was hoping and hoping and hoping that they would blur the screen and change it to actual Michael Jackson's performance
Yes.
and then
Scott,
fade
that
to
would have been
black.
so good because you know what? Okay, did you ever see the movie I, Tonya about Tanya Harding?
Of course.
Okay, when that movie ended, they showed her real footage from when she freaking aced it at the World Championships. I think it was 91 or something.
Yeah.
It gave me goosebumps. I would have loved to have seen like the real performance of actual Michael Jackson at the
Wouldn't that have
in
been a
credits
great
or
ending?
something.
That would have been a great ending.
Also, when they start when part 2 comes out and it's proven that it's definitely making enough money to continue the story, I want it better start off right where this one ended. I want to see more of the bad era because
Yeah.
that's my favorite Michael Jackson era.
I mean, that's where the best songs are.
Yeah. And
For
that's where
sure.
he finally broke away from Joe Jackson, his father, and the Jackson family to do his own stuff. He never toured solo for Thriller, which blows my mind.
Yeah,
Here
because
you
he
are putting out the biggest album of all time. I guess they didn't really know at the time that it was going to be the biggest album of all time. But you're putting out this huge seller. You got all these great hits. You got epic number ones. And then, well, you'll see in the movie why he did this. He's too nice. His father like guilted him into touring with the Jackson 5, which he should have said, "Nah, I'm not doing that.
Right.
I'm touring on my own for Thriller and I don't need to do that."
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, he made some mistakes. I felt like that was a huge mistake to do that. But I guess he really had these, he felt loyal to his family, which,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, I
And
get it.
when we say family, we're talking about he felt loyal to Tito, Jermaine, Jackie, Marlon, and Randy, not to Joe.
Well, Joe was the one telling him to do it. I don't know if Joe was still beating him when he was an adult or not.
No, I don't think he was, but I think he was certainly still intimidating Michael. That
Well,
was for sure. What did you think of Coleman Domingo as Joe Jackson? I think
like I said before, I thought all the performances were great. And Coleman Domingo, he's one of my favorite actors that are out right now. And his career is hot, hot, hot. He's in so much stuff.
so
I don't
much
even know how
stuff.
he has time to even like breathe. Every time I turn around, he's in something else. And people want him because he's really good.
And he just hosted Saturday Night Live a couple weeks ago, and he was
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah, the
he's
guy is
really good.
amazing. Also, Nia Long played Katherine Jackson, Michael's and all the
I love
kids'
her. I've
mother.
loved her since the 90s.
She did an amazing job.
Because she did a good job because, that character could just be like a throwaway. I mean, she's the matriarch, but she wasn't pushing them the way that Joe was. She didn't really have much to offer other than being motherly. And I love the scene where she's sitting on the couch when is he a kid or was he a teenager somewhere in there? And they had popcorn. They were watching Singing in the Rain. And she was like, "Oh, your favorite part's coming up." And it's Gene Kelly in the rain singing the title song. And I thought that was a nice little moment. And that's the sort of thing that you want to sort of learn about, well, what made Michael tick and what inspired him to
Yeah,
do these things. He was very much inspired by Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly, the classics. He did talk about it a little bit in the movie,
yeah.
how he did mention, I think he mentioned Charlie Chaplin at some point in the film.
He did,
So he
and
was very much inspired by classic Hollywood, which is why I put up this poster of Marlene Dietrich. There's not a direct relationship between those two, and I got my Mae West shirt on, he was very much into classic Hollywood. And I felt like that inspired his whole thing. And I thought, yeah, it
it
was
was that, and
his inspirations are great.
yeah, he had lots of inspiration coming from multiple angles, but also Peter Pan. Can't forget Peter Pan. Peter Pan was a big part of this movie too. Not only
He
for
wanted to be Peter Pan.
well, because he never got to have a childhood, and that's been brought up obviously for decades now. Everyone knows that he was forced to work from the time he was a tiny little kid and perform with his brothers. And all he wanted to do was be a kid. And he never got that chance, which is why, he wanted to play Twister with his brothers and he wanted to buy toys when he was in his 20s. And
Those
yeah,
those were like, kind of cute scenes a little bit where I've always thought that Michael Jackson was just like a big kid that never grew up because
exactly.
he didn't have a childhood and he didn't want to grow up. I mean, honestly, who does want to grow up? And when you do have enough money that you don't have to grow up, then guess what? You can build a Neverland Ranch and just be a kid forever until you get hit with allegations and everything comes crumbling down. But it is a, h- there was a TV movie about the Jacksons in '92. It was called The Jacksons: An American Dream. It was a mini series, a huge blockbuster TV movie. And that goes into a lot of the stories that we saw in this movie, but it focused on like the early years. And I think it went up to like maybe the 80s. That sort of explored a little bit about it and building the Neverland Ranch, wanting to be Peter Pan, wanting to not grow up. Like, yeah, these are
Wanted,
all things. And he's a tragic figure. His story is extremely sad.
yeah, and I think it all. You're right. The whole drug dependency problem all started with the damn Pepsi commercial. So I mean, it
Yeah,
was
I
kind
mean,
of like the
that's what started
downfall.
it. Who
Yeah.
knows if he would have gotten into it at some point eventually, but yeah, that's what caused that.
It's very, very disturbing to me, and I think about it a lot, how drugs have taken away so many of the people of that same era. Prince, Whitney
Whitney.
Houston, just so many others. It's very disconcerting and sad. So
This, my friends, is the Swish edition.
There's no excuse not to listen. Swish Edition.
So, we've touched on a lot of these other things that are in both the Billboard article and the Independence review. Obviously, there's a lot of things that aren't in this movie, like you didn't see him dating Brooke Shields or Tatum O'Neal, even though that was happening in this same time frame that we were
You
in.
didn't see him dating anyone.
Right. No, we didn't. He got Bubbles in the movie about 2 years before he actually did get Bubbles. So there's some mismatched stuff. It's
What
not
could,
quite
so
all there.
speaking of Bubbles, okay,
Yeah.
when I was watching the movie, I think about Bubbles way more than I should. I'm like, oh,
Okay.
every now and then in my head, I'm like, "Ah, whatever happened to Bubbles?
We
So
know.
Bubbles is still alive. He is 43 years old.
43.
43, and he's living his best life somewhere. Jackson's estate still pays for his care. I saw something like maybe 15 years ago or 20 years ago, a video, I think it was on some documentary at that time, where LaToya was visiting Bubbles at this sanctuary he's at, and it was kind of sad.
Yeah.
And then LaToya, so she had a lot of say in this movie. She's on I guess she decided she wanted to be a part of it. So she's kind of in it a lot more than she should be. And can we talk about her headbands?
If you must.
Every time I'm like, can we get who we need to have a special credit for the costume people that had to do the headbands for LaToya.
I assume that's what she wore back then.
I mean, didn't you see We Are the World video? She was in the chorus. She was wearing a headband then. Bette Miller even makes a joke about it. Bette Miller was like, I stood next to LaToya. She was wearing a headband. I felt naked. But no, like LaToya's fine. I mean, I was glad we got somebody in this because Janet wasn't in it, Rebe, Randy. And then there was the inaccuracies that you were talking about. There was the one big glaring one, and they even put a disclaimer at the end of the credits saying that, talking about inaccuracies. was when they were signed at Motown. So I think Gladys Knight and the Pips were performing, and the Jacksons followed them, followed their performance. There was a woman, I forget her name, from Motown that signed them or gave them their information or got their information. And the song that they were singing in the movie was Never Can Say Goodbye. And then the fans were like, wait, that song didn't even come out until like a couple of years after this time, after they were signed to Motown. But, and so, okay, that's very glaring inaccuracy, but why go through with that? There's these weird choices that they make. Like, why
Because
would
they were
you
because
do that?
what was the song that they did sing that night? Was it something that the audience would recognize, or was it some one-off? Here's the
It's
thing.
probably some one-off. They maybe, I mean, come
Right,
on.
but here's the thing, Robbie. What you're doing is what you're doing, and what these reviewers did at Billboard and Independent are picking things out that 99.999% of people aren't going to catch. I certainly didn't catch it. I didn't know that that song came out 2 years after that happened. So
Well,
it
there's
didn't
hardcore
bother.
fans that are picking
But
this out. I mean, I'm not a hardcore fan of
but there
Michael
aren't very
Jackson.
many. But I don't know that there are enough hardcore fans that know that that song didn't come out until 2 years later. Do you
Well, it's just
really
weird
think
when
that
it's just weird when you're doing a movie, a biography of
you should
someone.
try to get it right?
You should. You
Yeah.
should get it right. I mean, for the sake of entertainment, you are throwing facts to the side. This might not be that important, but if it's something that's going to be like held up years to come, 20 years, 30, 40, people are going to look at this as a reference to Michael Jackson. It's slightly inaccurate. I mean, it doesn't change
Yeah.
much, but why not
Well,
just go ahead and be accurate about it?
exactly. And why not? Why didn't they ever mention him doing The Wiz, the movie The Wiz, which was a
They didn't talk about
huge,
the Wiz. They didn't even
right?
talk about the We Are the World. He was the one that set that whole thing up.
That was huge.
I
But
mean, they only had 2 hours, but I
that's the
mean,
thing, is they couldn't do it all.
well,
Except I did
here's why
see.
I thought.
Go ahead.
I was going to say this might be why they didn't do We Are the World, because they're going to have to get all these people for the celebrities that were in a part of that to like play them, and it would just get cheesy.
It would have been too much.
But
You're
it
right.
was that was a big part in his timeline of things. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of a cool thing that he did.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. They couldn't do it all. There's no way you couldn't do. What about the Captain EO movie that he made for Disney World? I mean, there's tons of stuff that he did in this
What
time
about
frame.
so they did a big thing with the Beat It video, right? They spent a
Yeah.
lot of time on that
Yeah.
with the the Bloods and the Crips.
I
They
love
talked about that a little bit.
Yeah,
And then they spent a lot of time on the Thriller video,
I
and
love
both
that.
of those are justified because they're both huge.
Huge.
And then they didn't even touch on the Smooth Criminal video. You know, where he like leans. Why didn't they get into him leaning? Like, that was an epic dance move.
You're going to have to talk to the producers about that one. I don't know.
You know what? Here's what I'm gonna say every time they miss something. It better be in the sequel. Because they could do flashbacks in the sequel. They can
All
always
right,
make it
listen,
right.
you need to come to Vegas. Mandalay Bay has Michael Jackson 1, which is a Cirque du Soleil show. And it is literally my favorite show in Vegas. I've seen it 5 times. And it has the leaning Smooth Criminal. It's got that in there.
So cool.
I think you'd
well,
really enjoy the show.
Well, I'm gonna be in Vegas in July. Maybe I might try to squeeze that in.
I hope I get a chance to see you. That would be really nice. All right. Well, so we should probably wrap this up because we've gone on a little over almost 40 minutes. So what are your thumbs up or thumbs down? You're not thumbs down.
No, I'm a thumbs up.
Okay.
With some caveats, but
all right. What about a letter grade? How about a letter grade? Maybe that's more fair.
Okay, so letter grade, when it comes to biopics where like, I don't know, Bohemian Rhapsody and like Oppenheimer being an A,
okay,
and like a really bad one being like an F, like who was a bad biopic? But I can't even think. I try not to dwell on the bad stuff, but
there's been tons.
I would give this a B-.
All right.
B- for this movie, and only because of it felt rushed. I felt the writing was a little poor. Because you don't even have to, the writers don't even have to start from scratch and make anything up. It's all there. You just have to make it make it better.
Well, don't tell John Logan that you didn't like the writing. Do you know what he wrote?
What else did he write?
He wrote Gladiator, The Last Samurai, Aviator, Skyfall, and Spectre. He's done 2 James Bond movies. He's a very sought after screenwriter in Hollywood. So
none of those movies impressed me.
All right, fuck you, Robbie. All right, let's wrap up our review of Michael. I'm done. I think we're done.
This was fun.
Yeah, this was really fun.
Done too. I mean, Michael Jackson movie was fun. Yeah.
Go see it. Go see it, guys. It just came out. It's been out less than a week. You should go see it. Just don't go on a Sunday like I did. There were way too many people there. Tuesday morning at 10:30 is the best time to go.
When I saw this on Thursday right after work, so it was like about 3:30-ish in the afternoon. I was the only one in that movie theater.
Perfect. That's the way I want it.
But there was nobody else in there. I was like, the only one in there. But I thought this movie would have been more fun with a big crowd because, people are going to react. And I've seen videos of people like singing along. That's the kind of thing that wouldn't bother me for a movie like this.
All right. I hate people. So I was not happy that the theater was full of people and they were all fucking annoying. They were annoying me, and I never looked at my watch because I was enjoying the movie, but I was definitely still annoyed by the people, especially the couple off to my left who he had to tell her every time someone new came on the screen. He was like, "Oh, remember him? Blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, shut the fuck up, you stupid ass. Anyway,
we never talked about Mike Myers. I didn't like his part in the film. I thought it was weird.
Yeah, I guess we should. How do we?
Why is he always got to be in stuff
now?
Well, he was in Bohemian Rhapsody too. Remember, he had a small part in that. Why does he always got to show up and be weird? I just don't understand.
Yeah. Should we say what he did?
We could end it on that. So he was like, I don't know what his character's name was. He was some real life.
Walter Yentenkopf.
Yeah. Somebody that
He was the president and CEO of CBS Records.
That's right, CBS Records.
Yeah.
And he was the one that was trying to get Michael on MTV because he was saying that Michael wanted to be on MTV because MTV was not playing black artists. And do you think this was really how they got Michael Jackson on MTV?
I don't know. And I didn't research that part, but I wondered also if that's how he got his videos on MTV, because they basically said, we can't play, we're not playing black artists on MTV. That's what he said.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work.
That just seems so weird to hear that now,
And Michael basically put his foot down and said, I want Beat It to be on MTV. And then they ended up playing it every hour. And this is before CBS saw the Thriller video, which was obviously one of the biggest videos of all time.
MTV, people always said that the M in MTV stood for Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
So not having Michael Jackson a part of MTV, it does not. That people always said that in MTV stood for Madonna too, but that was because they were big on this channel back then. But to not have Michael Jackson on MTV just seems insane to me. But when you look at all the music videos that were on MTV at the early stages, there were not any black artists. Music was very segregated back then. But
they rectified it, and it took Michael to get that done, apparently, according to this movie.
Yep, and it only took 8 years to get Yo MTV Raps.
There you go.
If you remember that one.
Who could forget that? All right, let's wrap.
All right, we finally finished that and that last part at the end.
All right, we'll see you guys.
The Swish Edition is a production of Bethwick Media, LLC. Learn more about the show at swishedition.com. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast app or site. But only if you like us.
I was about to say nobody gives a shit about this, but go ahead.
About this?
About our soda discussion.
There are people that probably love hearing about soda. But
Tell me about your
theater, they have milkshakes now. Does your theater have milkshakes? I thought it was weird. And I thought it was weird, and I didn't get any for the longest time. And I finally got one when I went to see Michael. I was like, I'm going to splurge a little bit. I'm going to get an ice cream and popcorn, which seems like a weird combo, and it is. But it was it was good. And it was only $7 for this milkshake.
That
So
sounds like
if you see one there, it's not like a soft serve machine. It's like in a pre-sealed cup, and they mix it with the thing, and it was good.
yeah.
So I'm
I
saying
always
thumbs
get
up to the ice cream
I
at
always
the
get the
movies.
same thing. I get one hot dog and I get a Sprite, and that's it. And guess what? I usually take 4 sips of my Sprite, and that's it, because I don't want to have to go to the bathroom during the movie.